Thank you, Senator Kelly. Let me recognize Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and General. Good to see you again, sir. Congratulations to you and the whole committee for doing this. You and I have been in touch on your work for some time now. I'm really glad to see the hard work paid off here, and glad to see the committee is holding a hearing on this. I wanted to ask kind of a question that's not really related, but it came up last week in our confirmation hearing for the Undersecretary of Policy. We were talking about an issue, and I think from your own service that the military is it's not a perfect institution, but I think in America it's certainly well respected. And I think most people see it as one of the most important, in many ways, civil rights institutions, given how it has integrated different ethnic groups throughout our country. In the Marine Corps, nobody cares what race you're in. They just care how good of a Marine you are, right? That's the ethic that we all want throughout our nation. I think it goes to the idea of common service, too. We had an undersecretary nominee up for his position, Undersecretary of Policy, who declared that there was, quote, systemic racism within the ranks of the military. That was his quote. I questioned him on it, said, that's a pretty broad statement here to be making. Do you have any data to back that up? He didn't. So I'm just wondering first, very quickly, and maybe you can just say yes or no, in all your meetings with the military and communities and people who've served and others, did you see any actual data that there's systemic racism within the ranks of the military?
Senator, thank you for the question. As we traveled the nation and talked with officers and enlisted, as well as the general public, the one thing that resonated was the fact that people want an opportunity to serve, especially in the military. And when you look at bringing people together, as we do in military training, they leave that training looking at each other to their left and right and calling each other brother and sister. Yeah. When you bring people together in a civilian job training program, they leave calling each other colleague. And I think that speaks volumes to what bringing people together in a common cause like service can accomplish.
Yeah, that's been my experience as well. Again, not a perfect organization by any means, but to make that statement here without any data to me was kind of shocking. Let me turn to actually your report. This idea of critical skills lists and the IRR, I've been working on legislation that relates to that with regard to public health, particularly as it relates to what we've just been going through, a pandemic where, God forbid we have another one, but we probably are at some point in our history. And to be able to surge young men and women who have critical skills, for example, in healthcare. You're a general in the Army. You're the chairman of this commission. You also know a lot about healthcare. I wonder what you think about that idea. And then I was surprised to see that in a number of your critical skills list ideas, as I'm looking through the report, the Pentagon is opposing the recommendations that you're putting forward. Could you talk about that idea of like a surge IRR capacity if we had another big pandemic, young men and women who have training in healthcare can be recalled, public health service, military combination, and why that could be important, but also why do you think the Pentagon opposes those kind of ideas?
Senator, first, wholly support the concept of healthcare professionals being included within the critical skills requirements. And certainly the programs that we recommend could include healthcare professionals to surge. I think the important point that we try to make in the critical skills IRR, and perhaps IRR was not an artful term to use, because it may cause some angst or confusion, but we look at it as an opportunity for those with no prior military experience, right? As you know, the current IRR is those military members that are waiting to complete their military obligation with really no requirement to perform any service, but are still subject to recall. Believe that that's one of the issues that DoD has. It may be more with the name than it is with the program. Also to ensure that it doesn't count against their end strength caps, which they are already constrained by.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Sullivan. We do not anticipate a second round, but I have a question, and I will yield to the ranking member for his question. If others join us in the interim, then they'll be recognized. But again, you've done a superb job. One of